stage. Hey, Lauren, thank you so much for joining in.
Hey, Thomas. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Perfect. All right. So, got for everyone here, a quick intro on Lauren. Lauren is the CMO of SocketLabs. She brings 16 plus years of experience working with small and large scale senders, and she helps them get the most out of the email marketing program. She's an expert on deliverability, anti-abuse, and compliance, and also advocates for a data driven approach towards deliverability monitoring. So, before we hand it over to you, Lauren, and I know you're excited to go ahead and showcase it, quick question from my side, right?
Mhm.
What's the craziest experience that you've had when you engage with customers, right? And you're trying to solve the deliverability issues?
The craziest. That's hard because yeah, there's been some interesting ones over the years. I think one of them is probably that we had a new customer who came on board, and the first time they hit send, they racked up a complaint rate that was just through the roof. I mean, I don't even remember what it was, but it was like 30% or something ridiculous, to the point where we were like, this has got to be wrong. There's no way this is real. Ultimately, after a lot of time and a lot of digging, we found out that they hadn't brought over their suppression list from their past provider. So that was damaging. They had a lot of
Obviously,
complaints from
yeah.
people that they hadn't contacted in quite a while, but thankfully it didn't actually impact their deliverability nearly as much as we were all fearing it would. So it worked out pretty well in the end. They stuck with us.
All right. Good thing they had you on your side, yeah?
I guess so. Yeah.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Lauren. On that note, the stage is all yours. I'll drop off.
All right. Thanks, Thomas. And thanks to all of you at home for joining and for tuning in and for sticking with me after Jean's awesome presentation. And Jean, thank you to you because I'm blushing as I head into my session. So I hope you guys can all see that at home. But anyway, my session today is called Mastering Email Deliverability, Unlocking Secrets to Avoid the Spam Folder. And I am so excited about this session because there are few things within email that are more frustrating than seeing your lovingly crafted emails landing in the spam folder, or worse, getting blocked altogether. Because we all know that getting an email out the door is no small feat, right? Creating your content, managing your workflows, planning and executing on every little detail, and getting those campaigns loaded up and ready for launch, all of that time, all of that work, all of that planning and collaboration and testing. The email looks beautiful. The segment feels, just so perfect. But all of that effort is completely wasted if the email doesn't make it to the inboxes of your recipients, which is a pretty huge problem because email is big business. There are 4.14 billion email users globally, amassing a total of almost $50 billion in 2022. And those numbers just keep on growing year over year, right along with the number of emails that's sent annually. And it's not just about volume and revenue, even though those are pretty powerful numbers. In fact, email is actually the number one preferred channel for 78% of marketers that were surveyed by Statista last year. And it's the number one platform that companies believe they will continue to be using in 10 years' time. And for really good reason. Litmus tells us that email has an average return of investment of $36 for every $1 spent, which is more than any other marketing channel, but only if you're going to the inbox, which can be more difficult than it might first seem. Validity's research tells us that on average, about 1 in 6 emails goes to the spam folder. But that's only for legitimate emails sent by legitimate senders like you. This figure really, it doesn't take into account all of that really nasty malware and phish and all those other types of nefarious emails that are being sent that don't even make it into the recipient servers of the mailbox providers. And we all know spam and phish are a problem. And we know that that problem is growing, right? You can see that directly within your inbox every single day. But it can't be that bad, right? Well, Marcel Becker, spokesperson for Yahoo, says otherwise. In fact, in June 2021, at the Festival of Email, Marcel shared that more than 90% of the email sent to Verizon Media Group, now Yahoo, is spam or malicious. And only 1 to 2% of that overall volume might end up in the spam folder. What this means is that the vast majority of mail they receive on a daily basis is stuff they block outright because it's not even viewed as safe enough to be let into their servers, let alone given to the recipients. And these figures also seem to suggest that they feel confident that most of what they do allow into their servers is not only safe, but also very likely not spam. But I really want to unpack this figure a little bit because 90%, right? 90%. In school, that's an A. At work, if you get to 90% of your to-do list in any given day, that's one hell of a productive day, at least in my world. But 90% of emails sent to one of the largest mailbox providers in the world being really bad malware and spam and phish, not so great. Which brings me back around to the topic for this hour of Mailmodo's Email Edge Summit, which is email deliverability, inbox placement. Because with all of this really awful mail that's being thrown at mailbox providers, it's more important than ever for legitimate senders like you to differentiate yourselves from spammers and fraudsters so that you have the very best chance of having your mail delivered to the inboxes of your email audience. And you really do need to care about this stuff. So I'm glad you're joining me today, because otherwise your mail is probably going to end up getting blocked right along with a bunch of that really malicious mail, which is not where you belong. Or you'll be part of that 1% to 2% that ends up in the spam folder with providers like Yahoo. And either way, not good, not what you're shooting for, right? So let's get into it. Are you ready? All right, let's go. All right, so today's agenda includes an introduction to some of the key concepts that you really need to understand about email deliverability, what it is, how it works. There is a never-ending combination of factors that can affect what happens to your email after you push send. And while there is a lot of overlap in the metrics and the behaviors that mailbox providers are monitoring, the level of sophistication from one provider to the next can vary pretty greatly. For example, some providers like Gmail and Yahoo may be tracking hundreds of signals, literally hundreds of signals, whereas other providers may be tracking just a few key signals like authentication status, bounce rates, spam complaints, and maybe spam trap hits, something like that. So we'll spend some time reviewing what factors have the greatest impact on your sender reputation, a little bit of a Cliff's Notes there, and then we'll wrap up with my top recommendations for email deliverability success, things you really need to be doing if you want to avoid that spam folder and build stronger relationships with your email audience. So a little bit about me as we're jumping off. Thomas already gave you a little bit of a teaser. My name is Lauren Meyer. I am the Chief Marketing Officer for an ESP called SocketLabs. Our email delivery platform is a lot like SendGrid, or I guess maybe it was until recently when we launched a codeless email delivery platform with management tools that are geared towards enterprise level senders and service providers. And what we've built makes it easier to send email at scale and optimize performance when you're managing tens or hundreds of mail streams or customers if you are a service provider. And this is what I've spent most of my almost 17 years within email doing. I have traditionally been on the sender side, working for ESPs, consulting customers on how to resolve their deliverability issues, and sending lots of emails myself as a marketer, which is why I am here today to impart my knowledge on how you can reach the inbox with consistency without letting it become a full-time job, because you've already got one of those, and deliverability probably isn't it, right? All right, so enough about me. Let's get on to the good stuff. Understanding what deliverability is and how you can improve it. And more importantly, how you can avoid that dreaded spam folder. Ooh, right. All right, so starting from the top, the definition of deliverability is the percentage or the fraction of emails that were delivered to the inbox. On paper, this looks just as clear and easy to calculate as the delivery rate. In fact, people often use these terms interchangeably, and this sort of makes sense. They sound familiar. They're even kind of spelled alike. Their calculations look a little bit similar. And they do both actually have that standard calculation. We're off to a good start. But one of them is very accurate, while the other is incredibly subjective, open to interpretation, straight up voodoo in some cases, if I'm being honest. And the reason for this is because mailbox providers do give you feedback to let you know if they've accepted a message into their servers or if they've rejected it. So that delivery rate really should be pretty accurate within your ESP's reporting. But this is where things get interesting, because mailbox providers kind of hang up the phone right after that. They do not give you any feedback to confirm if any singular message was delivered to the inbox, sent to the spam folder, or dropped into a black hole somewhere with Hotmail. All right, so when ESPs and deliverability monitoring tools give you this deliverability rate, they're really just guessing. And don't get me wrong here. It's a pretty educated guess. Validity's got one of these scores called Sender Score that's actually been around since the return path days. This one allows you to pop in your sending IP or your domain, and it spits out a number from 0 to 100 that identifies the quality of your sender reputation and details about how mailbox providers may be viewing your IP address. And you can see that they provide some nice detail for you when you pop in your IP, and this is free. We've also got something at SocketLabs called Stream Score, which is pairing first-party data for customers who send email through us with third-party data signals that we can pull together from your list quality, your sending statistics, authentication and blocklisting status. We've got some seed results mixed in there and reputation feedback from mailbox providers like Google and Microsoft. So Google Postmaster Tools and Microsoft SNDS. It makes it really easy for senders to understand your email performance and take fast action on problems that could prevent you from reaching the inbox on future sends. And while my company has put a lot of thought and testing into increasing the accuracy of this scoring over the years, it's really important for you to know that at the end of the day, any deliverability rate or score you see within your tool, even like SocketLabs, is always just a guess because it's not based on any real feedback that's coming from mailbox providers. So you can't know for sure if any particular email that you've sent to a recipient has made it to their inbox or not, unless they're actually telling you so. So, all right, I can feel your eyes glazing over. So I'm just going to jump right off of my deliverability soapbox now. And let's get into some of the causes of deliverability issues, because there are a lot of possible reasons why your emails don't make it to their intended destination. And I kind of want to break this down in two different ways. So first, here's a list of some of the more common factors that can affect your sender reputation. So starting with IP reputation, domain reputation, and this includes all of the domains that are associated with your email, from the friendly from address you're using to the domain that you use to sign DKIM, to the links that are included within the body of your emails. All of that stuff matters when it comes to domain reputation. And then, of course, your authentication status. Some other factors affecting your sender reputation include blocklisting status and your past sending statistics. Content does play a part, but it's probably not the part that you're thinking. It's more about the reaction that your recipients have to your email than it is about the specific words or phrases that might be tripping up spam filters. If your content is too generic, or if it's overselling what you have to offer, that could anger recipients, making them more likely to engage negatively than positively. Mailbox providers use these factors to try and figure out if you're trustworthy enough as a sender to have your mail delivered to the inboxes of their users. The tricky part here is that each mailbox provider you send to has their own definition about what it takes to hit the inbox with their users. And we certainly do not have time today to dig into every provider that you're sending to. But after 17 years of doing this stuff, I can tell you that there are a couple of themes that seem to come up time after time, year after year, just like a game of whack-a-mole. And the first one of these is showing up unannounced. People do not generally like it when you show up unannounced at their house. And the inbox is not quite as intimate of a space as your actual home, but most people don't appreciate being contacted by strangers or people that they haven't heard from in a very long time out of the blue. It's one of the main triggers for spam complaints, and spam complaints are incredibly dangerous for your deliverability. The best way to keep your spam complaints low and make sure your email recipients know who you are is to get permission from every recipient before you send an email to them. It's a really good idea. And trust me, as a CMO who is responsible for helping SocketLabs grow our business, I get that it's tempting to purchase or scrape a list. Ugh, that would be so easy. That would just be so easy. But it's also poison for your brand and for your deliverability. So just don't be that guy or girl. There are countless ways that you can get someone to opt in or to hear from you instead of sending them that cold email. You could create educational content in the form of a newsletter or a blog feed, or you could host a webinar or a half-day email summit, just like Mailmodo is doing. You could run a contest or a giveaway that is relevant to your company's offering. And all of these provide great opportunities for you to send them a welcome email shortly after sign up to further set expectations about what's to come. And maybe, let's say you've met someone at a conference or a networking event and you've asked for their business card. So when you reach out to them via email, you can reference that moment of kind of human connection. So it's easy for them to recall who you are, why you're contacting them via email for that first time. All of these actions allow you to start building a valued relationship with people you'd like to one day see as customers, instead of contacting them out of the blue, which, let's be honest, is almost always more off-putting and promotional than it is helpful. So unless you are Ed McMahon and you have one of those monster-sized checks, don't show up at my virtual email door, please. You only have one chance to make a first impression, so make sure it's a good one, the one that you're intending to make. And mailbox providers don't like showing up announced either. If you're sending from a domain or an IP that they don't recognize, they're going to be more suspicious of the emails that you're sending, wondering if their users want to receive that mail and if it's even coming from the real you, or if it's somebody who's pretending to be you. Thanks to all of that phishing and that other malicious mail being sent around the world today, mailbox providers are very wary of mail that's coming from a new or an unknown source. This is one of the most common vectors for abuse and has been for a very long time. So as much as you can, try to avoid behaviors that are going to look suspicious, such as sporadic sending frequencies, huge spikes in sending volume. So let's say you send 10,000 marketing messages most days, but all of a sudden you're sending to a list of 500,000 or 1 million recipients. Where did you get that list? Your ESP and your mailbox providers are going to be suspicious and wonder what's going on there. Also, your sending IPs and domains, if they have a bad reputation, or if you're sending without proper authentication in place, that can look suspicious. Or even including links that have a really poor reputation. Perhaps they've been used by somebody else who's been spamming. That can look really suspect. And make sure that you're being thoughtful about any changes that you make to your sending IPs, your domains, your sender addresses. The more consistent and predictable that you can be as a sender, the more likely mailbox providers are going to be to trust the mail that you send and then to deliver that into the inboxes of their users. If you are migrating to a new ESP, or you have to change your sending IP or your domain, make sure you go through a warm-up period first to give mailbox providers time to get used to that new traffic. If you've got a good sender reputation from your old IP or domain, that will translate to the new one. It's just you got to go slow and give those mailbox providers a chance to catch up with what you're doing. And it's not just the mailbox providers that are going to respond favorably to you being a consistent, predictable, and trusted sender. Your email audience will respond favorably as well. But hey, look, I get it. Following industry best practices is not the sexiest thing, and it's not what your boss wants to hear when he's asking for results. But really, the two do go hand in hand. So if you need backup, I got you. Or I guess maybe I could say the mailbox providers do. I'll give you a couple of examples I pulled directly from the Yahoo Sender Hub's list of best practice recommendations. At the top of that list, sending emails customers want. What a novel idea, right? Well, that's literally the number one suggestion. Number one. Next, they recommend authenticating using SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. This is a pretty foundational step, which is why it's listed second. Yahoo's third recommendation is segregating email types by IP or DKIM domain, and this helps mailbox providers better understand the various types of email you send. One benefit of this is their ability to see your transactional email streams separately from your marketing mail streams, allowing them to properly prioritize your password resets, your purchase confirmations, without them being impacted by something a little bit squirrely that your marketing team is up to. Those batch and blasts are always really dicey. So next, they suggest using an opt-in method to confirm user subscriptions, which of course means getting permission from everybody before you start sending emails to them, and setting expectations about what they're going to receive from you and how often. And while Yahoo's list goes on for quite some time, actually, the last recommendation that I'm going to share with you is allowing users to easily unsubscribe. That unsub process should be easier than it is for them to unsubscribe, than it was for them to subscribe, right? They should be easier to get off the list than to get on the list. In some parts of the world, this is actually required by law, but it's actually a good thing to do for all email recipients, regardless of where you're operating. If they want to get off the ride, just let them go, right? Let them go. All of these recommendations, among others, can be found on the Yahoo Senders Hub. You'll find similar guidance that's shared among many other Postmaster sites managed by mailbox providers. So go check those out if you do need some backup for your boss or your client or your colleagues on why you need to be following these best practices. All right, so as we move on to the next reason why emails don't go to the inbox, I want you to take just one more look at this slide, because 3 out of the top 6 recommendations from Yahoo are directly related to recipients. And you should know that recipient engagement is the closest thing to a deliverability hack that exists. The main goal of every mailbox provider is to deliver a fantastic email experience for their users by keeping them safe, first of all, and then by only delivering mail to the inbox when they believe their user actually wants to receive it. And they determine that value or interest based on the positive and negative signals they see within the data and within their users' reactions to the mail. And while you likely are never, ever going to know exactly how they're determining that, because in some cases it's actually changing in real time, if you do align your goals with the goals of the mailbox providers, aiming to deliver a great experience for recipients, your email should have very little issue reaching the inbox in most cases. So let's talk about recipient behavior and how senders and mailbox providers are measuring it. Email senders only have access to engagement details like opens, clicks, replies, unsubscribes, and complaints, maybe conversions if you're lucky, but mailbox providers are looking at a lot more in an attempt to figure out if their users find interest in the mail that you're sending. And they're becoming more and more focused on user engagement as a way to improve the inbox experience for their users, particularly those larger providers like Gmail and Yahoo. Some of the positive forms of engagement that mailbox providers can measure include opening mails and clicking on links, replying to emails, starring them as important, or saving them to folders. Flagging an email found in your spam folder as not spam is actually a very huge positive impact on your deliverability because users are taking the time to find that message in their spam folder and move it back to their inbox, right? They're telling the mailbox provider, you got it wrong, and I want you to treat that mail differently the next time it comes into my inbox. Some of the negative forms of engagement that mailbox providers can measure include dragging an email from the inbox to the spam folder. So the opposite of what I just mentioned. That's also a pretty clear sign to mailbox providers about where you want that mail to land. Maybe they're just marking that email as spam as well. They could be just deleting your emails without opening them, not a great sign. And even a lack of engagement with your emails can be a problem. If the recipient is active with other emails in their inbox, so we know they like email, but they never engage with yours, that can have a negative impact on your deliverability over time, particularly if you've got a lot of recipients that are kind of behaving that way. You may notice that unsubscribes are missing here, and that's because they do not really have a huge impact on deliverability unless your unsubscribes are very much out of balance with other engagement metrics such as clicks. If a subscriber wants to get off the ride, you should make that super easy. And mailbox providers are very supportive of that. So they do not punish you for it. In fact, some providers like Gmail actually make this super easy for recipients by prompting their users to unsubscribe if they haven't engaged with a brand in more than 30 days or some other set time. And by offering the ability for a one-click unsubscribe, super easy, super helpful. Okay, so now that you have a better idea of what mailbox providers are looking at, let's see how you can mirror their view and monitor like a mailbox provider, sort of. It's a little bit different because you can see the overlap here, right? When it comes to deliverability, I suggest you monitor positive signals like open rates at the destination level. With this view, you can easily notice the trend line of over time, if you've got, let's say, like a 40% open rate at every destination that you're sending to, but you're averaging kind of like 6% with Hotmail, it's very likely that you have a spam folder issue with Hotmail. And with that information, you can dig into what Hotmail cares about and how you can improve your deliverability there specifically. Also review your click-through rates, your conversions, and anything that's happening in your email replies. On the negative side, keep a close eye on your spam complaints, always aiming to keep those below a super, super low rate. I'm talking like 0.02 or 0.03% here. I know that sounds incredibly low, but it's important to keep it there if you want to stay in the inbox. I just mentioned that unsubscribes do not have a huge impact on deliverability, but I will say they are a great proxy for identifying negative sentiments that could lead to spam complaints. So if you see a campaign that's got a higher than normal unsubscribe rate, take a little bit of a closer look, figure out what might be driving that, and try to improve that so that you don't run into an issue where some of the recipients on your list that are a little bit less motivated to unsubscribe, just go ahead and mark your email as spam instead. And of course, if you do see 0 signs of life from recipients, consider that it's probably time to let them go. So always be thinking about how you can drive those right kind of engagements with your email recipients. Which brings me to the last reason I'll be sharing today for why your emails might go missing. And this is ignoring the signals. Email is a data-rich marketing channel. It's one of the things that I love the most about email. And I've just shared with you what mailbox providers care about. And this stuff is stuff that I've heard from them in person, directly in person during conferences and other things. These are the more common signals that they use to inform their decisions. So you need to be monitoring these signals to inform your decisions as well regularly to ensure that the tactics that you're using today to meet your goals with email are continuing to work tomorrow and beyond. And so you're able to react quickly at the first sign of a problem, because you cannot set and forget your email program, especially not when it comes to deliverability. This is just not the way that inbox placement works. So let's talk about how you can identify problems with your deliverability. There are many ways that this can happen, many more than I'm mentioning today, I should mention, but these are the most common, right? So starting with a reduction in performance, such as a drop in delivery rates, or maybe engagement rates like click-throughs or your opens at the destination level have just kind of, sort of fallen off a cliff. Or you might notice a change in campaign performance that's related to the number of conversions or the revenue per email. Jean was just talking about how important these metrics are. Perhaps someone outside of your email team noticed that app sessions or website visits are down when there's usually this kind of like nice little spike right after you hit send. So, sure, it could just be an off day or maybe a less than stellar campaign. But if you're seeing this behavior for more than a day or two, you very likely have a problem that you need to look into if you haven't done so already. Another way you might find an issue is through third-party monitoring tools, such as a deliverability tool that notifies you about authentication issues, blacklisting, or that you're hitting spam traps. Or perhaps you'll notice that some of the seed test results that you have indicate emails are missing or went to spam with a certain network. Keep in mind, though, that these are just seed results. They're not actual human beings on their list. But if you do see a change in inbox trends over time within your seed test results, right? So if everything's chugging along and then all of a sudden everything goes missing or goes to spam, those could be clues about whether there's a real issue or not. So go find that out. All right, inching over to the compliance side of the house, you might be alerted of an issue by customers or maybe your CEO complaining about emails missing or going to their spam folders. Or perhaps your ESP's abuse desk is getting reports about a broken unsubscribe link or unsolicited emails that are being sent by you. All right. So, if compliance does get involved, either because of these complaints at the abuse desk or because some of your recent sending to statistics have triggered alarm bells with compliance team, it's very possible that your account will have a rate limit or some other kind of restriction applied while the compliance team is taking a look. So do your best to be helpful in those moments, because despite appearances, those folks in the compliance team are actually trying to get you back on the email road as quickly as possible. So be forthcoming and provide answers to their questions as quickly as possible. Help them help you so they can get you going again. All right, so outside of being nice to people, let's talk about what email practices you really need to be following if you want to reach the inbox consistently. As you might remember from earlier, mailbox providers have a very long list of best practices that they recommend. What I'm about to give you now is sort of like the shortcut, the Cliff's Notes version, based on my years in the deliverability trenches and working closely with customers and mailbox providers to solve actual issues. All right, so outside of being, excuse me, I've got 2 slides in there, that's fun. All right, and as we head into this last section, I want to stress how important it is to be proactive when it comes to deliverability. It is a whole lot easier to stay in the inbox than it is to dig yourself out of the spam folder. And knowing how important recipient reaction is to mailbox providers, you don't want to wait until there's a problem before you do right by email and by your email recipients. Don't forget that these folks are humans. They're just like you. Well, okay, they're not just like you because you're a marketer, but they are humans, right? So do your best to treat them that way by sending emails that you genuinely believe they want or for some reason need to be receiving. All right, so the number one thing for you to do to set yourself up for success now and in the future is to pair your email goals with your business goals. There is a reason why someone is engaging with your brand. They want to be a customer of yours. They see this glimmer of shining hope that you have something to offer that's going to make their lives easier or better or happier. So think long and hard about why that person is coming to your brand in the first place. And also think about the goals that your company has for this quarter or for this year. How does all of that connect to what you're doing on a daily basis? How do the emails that you're creating and sending to your customers or your potential customers help make them happier, more loyal email recipients who are more likely to actually drive revenue for your business? That's the reason that you're sending in the email in the first place. So don't do anything else until your directives are clear on what you're doing. None of your planning or reporting or beautiful email creation is going to be worth anything if it's not helping the company achieve those goals. Next, I'd like to spend just a moment talking about spam complaints, because spam complaints are one of the worst and quickest ways to damage your deliverability. I know I've said this a couple times, but if you take away one thing from my session, this is what I want you to take away. And the reason why this is important is because These are signals to the mailbox providers directly from your email recipients that say that they do not want to keep hearing from you as a sender. You want people on your list who are highly engaged and receptive to communications with your brand. Maybe they're even jazzed about it, right? That'd be awesome. If you're sending to someone who's never heard from you or who doesn't remember signing up because the process wasn't clear, they are very likely to mark your emails as spam, right? Super, super damaging to your deliverability. But even if someone has signed up for your emails, they may still mark your emails as spam. You're never going to know exactly what triggers people to do this because, again, you're sending to humans and we are incredibly complex beings. But there are really, truly millions of reasons why someone might mark your email as spam. And honestly, a lot of those don't have to do with email. But in my experience, the 4 most common reasons within email are, first of all, because they don't recognize you. Second, maybe the content is irrelevant. So again, even if they signed up for that content, people's lives and preferences and priorities change and you need to roll with that, which is why I really feel like monitoring your performance metrics over time is super important. You got to stay close to that. Also, be sure to set your expectations about what kinds of emails they'll receive after signing up. How often will you contact them? Letting them know what comes next is going to keep your spam complaints really low and make folks less likely to unsubscribe shortly after signing up, which, honestly, you've worked so hard to get them on your list. So don't let them bail right away because you kind of drove them away, right? So make that process really easy. And then also make the unsubscribe process just as pleasant, right? If you don't, or if your unsubscribe link is broken, someone's going to mark your email as spam. All right, so next up on our list of things you really should be doing to hit the inbox is authenticating the emails that you send, every single one. If you're attending this summit, you've probably heard of email authentication before. We're talking about SPF, DKIM, DMARC. It's totally okay if you've never heard of these. Don't freak out. I've actually thrown the names of these puppies up on the slide so you can jot them down and ask either your ESP or your I-team about them later. So for now, just think of SPF and DKIM kind of like your passport, your driver's license, or some other form of ID that tells mailbox providers exactly who you are. It allows them to have a bit more confidence that the mail you're sending is legitimate. And you can think of DMARC kind of like a fraud alert from your bank informing you of some purchase that they've declined from some random local shop in Italy when you haven't been to Italy in years. We won't spend a lot of time on authentication today because it can get very technical and it could honestly take up an hour all on its own, if not more. So I would say check in with your ESP first to ensure that you're properly authenticated. One pro tip I will share with you about authentication is that while your ESP may be authenticating your emails for you, and that's super nice and easy, note that they're doing this using a shared DKIM domain. So that shared domain equals shared reputation. And shared reputation means you may face deliverability issues that are caused by other customers of your ESP that are sharing your same domain. So if you're following best practices and you have a pretty decent sender reputation, decent sending results, I'd suggest looking into signing DKIM with your own domain. And your ESP can definitely help with this. They actually like it when you do this in most cases. All right. Did somebody say puppies? Because I feel like that last slide was a bit of an ice cream headache, if you will. So just want to give you a little bit of a break, a little bit of a palate cleanse here. All right, nice puppies. Okay, so back to business. Next up on our list, optimizing for engagement. There are so many ways to encourage recipients to engage with your emails. And did someone mention puppies? Oh, it was me again. We've talked about how important that balance of very high levels of positive reputation and positive engagement, and then those very low levels of negative engagement are for your inbox placement. So depending on what your brand offers, putting some adorable puppies into your emails may improve your recipient engagement. Or maybe your recipients are more cat people. That's cool with me. It's probably cool with your email recipients as well. So, all right, this is getting silly. So enough with those distractions. I'm going to get back to work with you guys now. I'm going to bring this slide back so we can bring this back into focus. So your goal when it comes to deliverability is to get creative about how to drive as many of those positive engagement reactions that you see on the screen, while simultaneously making sure you're keeping your negative reactions from your audience as low as humanly possible. You really do need to focus on both sides of that coin, because while it may seem great to have really high open rates, generating high spam complaints in those same emails by overselling what you have to offer can be very damaging to your future ability to hit the inbox. So always be thinking about how you can drive the right kind of engagement with your email recipients beyond just kind of like, oh, there's a sale on the website and here's where you can buy, but it's the same sale we had last week. Like that doesn't really work. So I know we have a creative bunch here today. I know it. So just take a moment and think about what else you could do with an email to get someone to open and then to click or reply, to explore the new products, and ideally go to your website and eventually make a purchase or sign up for a user account. How else can you draw them in to educate them on what you offer and why they need you in your life, even if it's just for a good chuckle? There are infinite possibilities when it comes to getting your email recipients to engage. So get creative, friends. My main job here is really just to to get your gears turning a little bit. So to that end, I'm going to share an example of a technology that you can use as inspiration or implementation to increase the likelihood of recipients engaging with your emails. And that is AMP, which stands for Accelerated Mobile Pages. It's not for everybody because it does add some complexity to your email production process. But I'm personally a big fan of AMP because it can do so much for email marketers, particularly those in the e-com, hospitality, and travel industries, among others, because it gives people the ability to provide a richer, more app-like experience by adding interactivity inside of their email messages. AMP allows recipients to take simple actions like RSVPing to an event, booking a meeting, sharing feedback and reviews with companies, taking quizzes and polls that are fun, even shopping and making purchases can all be done without even needing to leave their inboxes. And the great news is that engagement within the inbox makes it easy for mailbox providers to see what mail their users like. So if your recipients are engaging with interactive emails that you're creating, that's a win for deliverability in addition to improving the brand experience for your brand. And I want to give a shout out to Mailmodo, who is the host of today's Email Edge Summit, because they actually make it really nice and easy to boost your email conversions with interactive emails. Now, it's important for me to point out that while this is awesome, some of these technologies like AMP can be used to increase the likelihood of your recipient engaging with your emails. But you can also do a lot of really cool things without technology, without Mailmodo if you're not a customer of theirs just yet. But you need to get creative. So use these maybe as kind of more inspiration instead of actual implementation, because there's things that you can do on your own. All right, and what's cool about email is there are just so many places for you to influence recipient engagement all the way through the funnel. Getting people to opt in and setting expectations at the point of email address collection is going to dictate the quality of your database and the health of your sender reputation, which will impact your ability to reach the inbox. And then once you're in the inbox, you'll need a compelling from address, a subject line, and a pre-header text to get them to open your message. And then you'll need a similarly compelling message in the body of your email, followed by a strong call to action to actually get them to click and then eventually convert. So I would encourage you to not only get creative with the content of your emails, but also consider other ways to optimize the quality of your database and the overall experience that you're delivering to recipients on behalf of your brand. This can be really powerful. And speaking of brand experience, I need you to remember that marketing is multi-channel. You're rarely going to find a person who only engages with brands via email, even if they're an email nerd like me. They're likely getting marketing influence from TV, newspapers, billboards, family and friends, app notifications, banner ads, text messages, you name it, right? It's all there. Email is just one channel, albeit it's the channel that most of us in this virtual room love the most, and it's the one that we're the most focused on, but it is not, and unfortunately, it will never be the only marketing channel that matters. So always keep in mind that larger experience a person's having with your brand. Make it feel cohesive all the way from that subject line to the from address, the body of the email, the creative, to clicking through and landing on a website. Think of how you can make the conversion process as easy and streamlined as possible while delivering a really enjoyable experience for the humans that are engaging with your brand. You got to think outside of the email box on this one, at least just, kind of a little bit. This is how you keep the email channel relevant for them. And you need to make sure to never stop optimizing if you want your messages to have the best possible chance of reaching the inbox and reaching the hearts of your email audience. Monitor your email engagement stats to understand what your recipients like and what they don't like. Try new lead magnets and types of content, new sending frequencies to find out what works best, and make sure everything is working as expected. You need to test your automation workflows and your sign-up forms regularly to make sure that they're working the way you want them to. Test the unsubscribe link to make sure it's working so you can avoid those spam complaints. Email, at the end of the day, is not a set and forget activity. So make sure you're following the signals we discussed today to ensure your program stays on track and performs even better over time. And last but not least, I'd like to leave you with some guidance on how to know when you can ask for help, when you need to ask for help. Because while I've focused most of today's session on how to proactively avoid the spam folder and reach the inbox, life isn't always that easy. There are times when even the best senders are going to see an issue and they need some help to solve that quickly. But knowing that there are hundreds of factors potentially affecting where your emails land, it's not surprising for anyone here today to hear that dealing with deliverability issues is helpful. So let's figure out where you fall in this, all right? So we're going to start with what you can do on your own, because there are a lot of things, including many that we already talked about today. So to summarize, as we kind of close up here, I want you to align your email program with company goals. Get permission and set recipient expectations before hitting send. And that's just a great idea, right? Because there's no silver bullet to the inbox, but having a quality opt-in process that's going to ensure subscribers stay positively engaged with your content instead of unsubscribing, or worse, marking your emails as spam, is going to help you in the long run. Other things you can do on your own are protecting all of your sign-up forms with a CAPTCHA or a reCAPTCHA or any kind of form protection you can to avoid bot sign-up abuse. This stuff is super tough to clean up, so it's a great place to be proactive so you're not stuck with some kind of messy cleanup on aisle 6 that takes you all day. I really do encourage you to work with your IT or your ESP to set up your authentication. Again, that's a little bit of an ice cream headache. And then monitor your email performance metrics regularly. That's a must. And you also need to make sure that it's super easy to unsubscribe, so recipients can use that process instead of marking your emails as spam. Ultimately, all of these activities help you optimize your email program and your engagement, which is the key to reaching the inbox. Deliverability is a complex topic, and we all have our comfort levels when it comes to the technical topics, the troubleshooting. So as we kind of move across to the right side of the screen, you'll need to cater this to your own situation to know when you're going to need to tap somebody for help. So perhaps you aren't sure if you're hitting the inbox. That's a good time to consult a deliverability person. Maybe you're aware that there's a problem, but you're unsure why. So can you maybe look in your ESP reporting to figure out what's going on? Or maybe you can tap your support team for some guidance on how to find that. Maybe you know why there's a problem, but you don't know how to fix it. I think you know where this is going. Maybe you're getting blacklisted repeatedly. Great time to talk to a deliverability person and solve that problem once and for all, right? No more whack-a-mole. And lastly, if you're adding or changing IPs or domains, or if you're migrating to a new email service provider, you're going to need some kind of a plan. And it's best to work with somebody who's been through that process many, many times. Warm-ups can be very tricky. All of these are good reasons to consult someone who understands deliverability before you continue hitting send. Start by checking with your ESP, as they often have heard your question before, or they've seen that issue. Maybe they even know exactly how to help. But if not, they know who to ask for help. So you're going to get on the right track. Beyond that, there are many places you can find deliverability help within special interest groups on social media and within Email Geeks Slack groups as well. So there's a bunch of Slack groups out there. You could also reach out to me. Again, my name is Lauren Meyer, Chief Marketing Officer for SocketLabs, and it's been my pleasure today to share a bit of my world with you, even if I talk very, very fast. If you do have any questions about how you can boost recipient engagement and your inbox placement, share them in the chat, because we're about to jump into a bit of a Q&A. Or you can shoot me an email, come find me on LinkedIn or Twitter later. So thanks again for tuning in, and happy inboxing.
So let's get right into the questions. So I'll just pop up a couple of questions and maybe we can start picking up. Right. So we have the first question from Diego here. Right. So he says, besides lists and prohibited words for spam and deliverability app, what else do you use, Lauren?
So I don't really, I need to kind of cling on to the first part of this. I really don't care about prohibited words for spam, because in B2B, there are still some anti-spam filters that do care about content, but we're really talking about a very small fraction of your overall kind of spam score. They're really looking for kind of bigger signals that there's a problem. And then as you move over to like those bigger mailbox providers, they also don't I'm not saying they don't track spam words. I'm sure that's part of their algorithm, but there's so much more going on. There's really just truly hundreds of signals that they might be tracking. So I don't really care about the spam words, and you shouldn't either. But really, I think that's where it depends on what your comfort level is, right? Your ESP probably has some really good reporting. I know Mailmodo does, SocketLabs does as well. And if you feel like you've got a pretty important program, there's a lot of moving parts, you're really making a lot of money off of email, I would say maybe look into a deliverability monitoring tool. And there's tons of those out there, right? I think Validity is probably like the most expensive one, the highest, but there's also ones like 𝐿OCK apps, Kitbox, Inbox Monster, tons of different products that you could use there.
All right, perfect. Thank you for that. And we'll move on to the next question. So we have a question from 𝐿𝐿 here. He mentions interactive elements means more clicks per email, right? So does that count using user engagement, or do you have a different opinion?
It does, yes. And that's thanks for calling this out, because interactive emails, like that's everything that's happening is happening directly within the inbox, right? So mailbox providers can see all of that activity, and they can see what emails people are really liking. So that definitely is a plus for your engagement and your deliverability.
And the next question would be is from Anshuman here. How to avoid bot clicks or find a solution for it? We see the same set of recipients opening our emails for every campaign, and we define them as bot clicks as the machine is opening our email. How to pass them to the Mimecast blocks?
Okay, so a lot going on here. So bot clicks are a little bit frustrating. Those definitely can come from lots of different places, right? That could be an anti-spam filter that's clicking on that. It could just be a seed address that's just kind of literally just trying to find out where your messages are landing. It could just be some really aggressive spam filter, right? So I would say for that, I don't have access to it right now, but there is a link that I can share that actually has a really good process and kind of shows you there's a couple different tactics here. For example, you could add a pixel within your email that perhaps is only going to fire for bots and for machines, but humans can't see it, so they cannot interact with it. So then you can kind of separate those out. But there's also some ESPs that actually help you figure this out themselves. So if you're using one of those, good for you. And when it comes to Mimecast, that is a very tricky beast. Maybe ping me afterwards, because I don't want to get into that with everybody right now, but I can definitely give you some tips on that.
Okay, all right, and we'll just take a couple more questions. We have from Surya here. In the order of domain reputation, MLAP reputation, IP tracking domain, and PTR domain, can you rank each one of them in the descending order?
I cannot, because I don't know what the mailbox providers care about the most. So it's not really up to me. I will say over the years, domain reputation has become much more important. I would say even much more important than IP reputation, because it's just mailbox providers can get down to nitty-gritty details, right? So imagine if you've got subdomains that you're using. One is, maybe marketing.socketlabs.com. The other is transactional.socketlabs.com, receipts or something. Mailbox providers can very easily see kind of what your intention is with those mail streams. So that's very important. All the other stuff you mentioned does factor in, but I think it's really just, try to excel at as many things as you can. Each mailbox provider you send to is going to have a different ranking for all of the things you mentioned. So it's hard for me to kind of judge that.
Okay, thank you for that. And we have any more questions? All right, from Kathy here. Obviously, very creative last name, but anyway, getting to it. Do mailbox providers monitor when users delete emails without opening them? And does this affect the reputation?
Yeah, so mailbox providers definitely do monitor this. And I think the biggest impact, so figure this is not going to be one of those things where people delete your email and like magically you're going to the spam folder. This is something that's probably a very small kind of dent on your deliverability every day. So it's more just if you've got people that are deleting without opening, but the mailbox provider can see that they're engaging more positively with other emails in their inbox. So they're opening, they're clicking, they're doing all these positive things there, but they're just looking at yours and being like, delete, delete. Eventually, you might see that those messages go to the spam folder for you as the recipient, because the mailbox provider sees what you like. But if you've got enough people that are just deleting without opening, eventually there's kind of like this tilting point where it will start to affect your larger sender reputation as well.
All right. And the next question we have is from Alex. Is there any option to understand if your client can see AMP email? Interesting.
Ooh, that is a very interesting question. I don't have a great answer for this one. I would say it's, look at your engagement. Look, I don't. I'm actually going to just kind of take not to say a pass on this one, but I think it's very difficult to kind of track.
I can chip in here maybe, right? Essentially, AMP right now at this stage is supported on any Google Mail, Yahoo, and our Mail, right? So typically, if your audience is in this scenario, right, who has email IDs on this platforms, definitely they will be able to see an AMP email that you're sending out.
And if you would love to know more about it, with Mailmodo, we do have the functionality when you run test campaigns or a campaign, we show you the splitation of where your audience is, right, in terms of email clients. Is your majority on Apple Mail, Gmail, or Yahoo? And that insight can help you design either more interactive elements or just stick to the HTML ones and design that more beautifully. So that hopefully answers your question. Yeah.
I like that. Good stuff, Thomas. Thanks.
Perfect. Any other questions here? Let's see. Let's take a look. And one from Syed here. What's the preferred process and frequency to keep the email list functional or clean?
So this one is very dependent on what business you're in. So imagine if you are, an e-com company, you're just selling kind of, over-the-counter products, things like that. You might have people that are buying very often. So it might be okay for you to send every single day or multiple times per day, depending on what's going on. But imagine if you're a car company and somebody already bought a car, you're not going to keep sending them emails offering cars. You need to kind of get into more fostering that relationship. So perhaps you're sending them like service reminders, or maybe you have like, some sort of event that actually draws them in. So Jeep does a really good example of this, of kind of, drawing in community and having events that's like, hey, yes, go Jeep. So you feel really kind of part of this community. And I think that makes you very much more likely to engage and maybe buy that car later. So it really is, look at your engagement stats, try to figure out and do some testing too, right? Like if you do send once a week, try sending a bit more and see if your audience likes that. If they engage positively, send a little bit less too and see if that helps improve your overall performance. And by performance, I mean more about the conversions and the actual revenue that you're making from email, less about people opening and clicking, because that's great, but make sure they're going down further into the funnel as well.
Fair enough. I mean, that's perfect. All right. Any other questions? Let me just go through it. All right. I think we're done with the questions for now. So we have one. All right, perfect. I think this is from Imran. Does interactive email get land in the mailbox tab?
Does interactive email get land in the mailbox tab?
I think what you do is it the primary folder or the promotions folder?
Yes. Okay. So yes, this one, the interactive emails go to the promotions tab. And so the only people that should be using interactive emails in my mind mostly are marketers who have something that is actually a very promotional thing. So they're going to land in the promotions tab. This is the point of the interactive emails, is that once you're in that promotions tab, you can stand out. Your email is going to look much more beautiful. It's going to be easier for you to engage with it than everybody else's emails.
So ironically, Lauren, what we've also seen internally is we've got a couple of B2B customers, in fact, right, who use interactivity right now. And they've been sending out emails to collect user feedback and, the NPS rating, CSAT scores, and those happen to land in the primary inbox. So it depends on what content you're sending also and to what audience. But yeah, I mean, it's always, you got to try it out, test it out and see what works for you. And we will definitely help you out on that. Any other questions on the chat? Let me check. All right, we have one from Amrita here. One of the common things I've heard is to avoid images, links, etc. in an email to avoid getting marked for spam. So how do you balance it out with interactive elements?
Yeah, and so I think figure the reason that people mark as spam, we don't know what that is, but if you have a whole bunch of images in your email, there's some people who don't even load images. So if your email is an entire image, they can't even see it. They see your subject line, and then they're like, what's going on in this email? So they can't even engage with it. Links can be a problem more so if they look spammy, if it's like, oh, what's going on with this? I don't trust this link. So basically, if people don't trust your email, they're going to mark it as spam. And I think you can balance this out with the interactive elements to just make your emails more engaging, right? You want to have this nice balance of text and image ratio. It's good for your recipients because it's just a nice experience, but also if they're not loading those images, it's really going to be a better way to do it.
All right. Any other questions for the day? Or I think we are done. Or one from Amit Kumar. We have some spam trap email hits. However, all the users are email OTP signups, so transactional emails. How do we clean our list?
So I would recommend, if this is a big problem for you, you might want to look into something like a real-time validation at the point of sign up. The other thing you could do is maybe even just start by having like a syntax check. So figure if people are typing Gmail incorrectly, and that's one of the problems there, you could have something that's kind of like, hey, looks like maybe that's wrong. So you're checking the most common typos. So that's an easy way to do it. But if you have the budget, real-time verification will go and kind of check and make sure that that address is real and active and correct in real time, which is super helpful.
All right, perfect, awesome. So I think we have time for one more question, and we can call it today. Do we have any other questions on Swift? Or we have one from Tarun here. What's the
Mhm.
ideal frequency and daily volume for a warm up? Oh, very good question. Yeah.
Yes, very good question. Yeah, so I think for me, I like it when people can send like almost like if you can send daily during your warm up, that is great. And again, this depends on what your brand is, but imagine if you've got this big list and you're able to kind of parse that out. Every time that you hit send for mailbox providers, that's like another touch point for them to kind of measure and engage and figure out like, do your recipients like that mail? So if you're only sending once a week or once a month, your warm-up period is going to take forever, especially if you've got a really large list. So the more often you can send during warm-up, usually you can get through it more quickly, but start very small. Like it definitely depends on the destinations you're sending to, but if you've got a list that's got a lot of one destination, let's say if it's a lot of Gmail, you need to slow that down. You need to make sure that you're starting small. So like honestly, some mailbox providers suggest you start with 50 messages per day. I've seen some success with, sending a couple thousand per day to start, but I think that's where you need to really pay attention to the signals as you're sending. Are you getting like 10 deferrals? Are you getting bounces? Are you getting blocks because mailbox providers are mad that you're sending too fast? So kind of use that to gauge if you can slow down your thing to improve your warm up, or if you can improve that. And last thing, warm ups apply to domains as well as IPs. So if you're switching domain but not IP, still go through kind of a mini warm up, if you will.